questions to be presented. Please go ahead. Is it Mahlan, Mr. Ngumalo?
It's me, Chair Letsatsi. Thanks, Chair. Yeah, Chair, this is the application for the registration of importation of gas from Mozambique to Sasol, South Africa. So metrics. The registration of gas production and importation falls within the purview of the piped gas subcommittee, Chair. So according to the EMH, state-owned Mozambican gas company, Sasol South Africa, to import up to 2 billion gigajoules of natural gas facility in Mozambique to the pressure protection station in Secunda via the Mozambique to Secunda pipeline. So in terms of the application, the imported gas is meant for the production processes by Sasol in its Secunda plant, Chair. From the allocation of the 36 million of gas that was intended for the Mozambique gas supply, Chair. So looking into the application, Chair, our assessment said that the applicant has met all registration in terms of the Act. We therefore recommend that the Pipe Gas Subcommittee approves or the Mozambique to Secunda pipeline, the attached reasons for decisions, the certificate registration of the gas activity, Chair. Thank you.
The submission is before you for consideration and for decision. Any questions of clarity on this additional gas coming from Mozambique to Sens? By show of hands, members. Mr. Mkhize, you may go ahead.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thanks to Mr. Mlati for the presentation. If you quote the delegation clause, it will assist that we show that it really refers to this the matter to this committee. And then on page 3, I note that the session was 16th of August, and I'm not finding something that clearly indicates up to now. On page 4, make sure around that one, because it seems to be something that continues in its nature. On the same page 4, it would also have helped in the group structure, so that it helps, because this is an entity that we tend to frequently deal with. It will help to give an indication when this agreement was signed, because it doesn't give here the date that should come first. And then we talk of this agreement, but you are not what the implications around it are. Serving as well? Are there any other issues around it that we need, as a regulator, we need to be conscious of and alive to? I'm just concerned with this of competition and a prudence analysis. That even that high-level prudence analysis that is supposed to be done is not here, as well as competition issues as to what this imply. Yes, it could be a different subsidiary or a different company. We know that this is a dominant player, and how do we deal with that? Because we don't want to we're not aware of what was happening. I leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Advocate Sithole?
It said it's issued indefinitely, revoked at any point in time where there is such. Chair, I will stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sithole.
Yeah, I think on the first point about the delegation clause, I think on our part, we did not include it in the submission. That will be, so take note of Mr. Mkhize's input that this is an ongoing thing. The reference to it as a project, we look into that, Chair. And on the structure, the absence of Sasol gas, was submission, Chair. The final draft on implement decisions will look into the structure that incorporates all major subsidiaries of all that are part of this, Chair. I'm looking into that. I think it's March 20 on paragraph 6.1. It states that the GSA was concluded on 20 March 2022 and valid until 2024. Then another question is that the agreement was consummated before. Yes, Chairperson, it happens that to be registered, or they cannot be registered before or after they are operating. So in terms of this, we have many operations that we registered after the effect, Chair, as long as documentation related to that is submitted and properly scrutinized.
Point about registration after the fact. Mr. Mkhize, are you covered with the response?
The law not covering us or empowering us, I noted that, but I noted it with concern, real concern, because then what's the purpose then of having registration if a person can do it at any time? Because you can sign things prior and have all the agreements, and it should then follow registration. At least the regulator must be able to give some green light in this regard. Otherwise, why then have the registration the way we're having it? Once I made this, just to save time, Chairperson, is also on the imported gas specifications. I know it's a confidential document, but if you look at the at 5 where it talks of the components, let's see those. There's a lot of gremlins there. If you can just units, what is displayed there? It's incorrect. Thank you.
Requirements of the Act, they only kick in terms of the Gas Act is very specific there that nobody will operate any gas infrastructure or trade in gas, do construction, do operation that does not deal with the.
Yes, that is noted, Chair. We'll do that. And another question by Mr. Mkin. Okay, the one about who is this thing serving? What are the issues that we need to be alive to? On this, who is it serving? I think in the main, Chair, we've got 2 million additional gas that is supposed to come to the South African gas markets, particular production processes, Chair. So I think that is the issue that we need to be alive to at this point, that it is serving the South African market. We know that, Chair, that the 36 million allocation of gas in terms of the order of gas of the gas in Mozambique has not been monitored. That is why they've meant for the Mozambican markets to. These are the issues that maybe we need to be alive to. Application, and normally we'll be doing those issues in this, and the issue of the prudence and competition when
shorten the response.
That is already in operations, Chair. Yeah, I think I'll pause on anyone picked it up, or Mr. Newman Ms. Tole can repeat it, Chair.
Okay, all that you are going to state in the end on the issue of a competition, because it's on the operation. Once the activity now on operation in the market, it is the requirements, legal requirements for registration are clearly stated in for registration in terms of the regulations. If you can go to that, and the quantities, because that's what is for database purposes. They get that on an annual basis. Mr. Mkhize?
I'm not in for competition being left out, because we must form our. We are going to grant registration or not grant registration is to be used properly, and I am of the view that this matter, as well as the previous issue on the sequence, it be taken offline, and then they then work on it as a team to see how these matters need to be dealt with without necessarily delaying this application, which is already delayed if one considers that this was first received as a complete application on the 16th of August 2022. Thank you.
Note those two things. We'll also just check at the time of the when we get to the recommendations. That's the way that we can evolve the assessment of the nature of the application. So, Romalo, can you please respond?
Maybe respond to that. Advocate Stoller, on the contraventions, what we normally do is we issue the registration subject with registration conditions, remedial measures in the event of any contraventions. So what we normally do is basically engage the applicant or the registrant and try and indicate to them that there was a contravention and ask them to actually correct it. Most of the times they are able to do so. They've done, but if they were basically to refuse to do so, the act is actually silent at the moment. But those are issues that have been communicated to the policymakers with regard to. Thank you.
Part that where you align it with the duration of the operation, because you are going to register the import of the gas. So then the licensee will be operating that activity. So once operation, so that importation doesn't occur, because they will have to, in addition to the response that you provided, Mr. Namal. All right. If the members, I would like to then take you to the recommendations that are for this application. The recommendations are on page 9 of the overstamped pages, 9 of 27. Paragraph is requested Maputo to Secunda transmission pipeline owned by Romco into the sequencing of decisions pertaining to registration as well as the operation of gas infrastructure. Are members happy then to approve those recommendations as read out by show of hands, members? Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Advocate Stoller. Thank you, Mr. Pukula. And thank you, Ms. Mpungose. Thank you very much, members. I also support. We're now moving on to item number 6. Item number 6 is the consultation document on aspects of the submission.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning to members. Light-handed to stimulate growth of the industry. Despite this enabling gas regulatory framework, substantial growth of competitiveness that is required to enable such growth has not occurred as desired. Although there has been entry of new gas, traffic has not increased significantly, and Sasol Gas remains the dominant and vertically integrated gas supplier and infrastructure service provider. It is the single source of gas for most gas traders and owns and operates the bulk of the gas transmission and distribution network. In NERSA's assessment of the adequacy of competition in the South African pipe gas industry in the past, the key barrier to competition and growth in the industry was identified to be the lack of gas supplies and the investment in the infrastructure required. Chair, it is for this reason, background, the consultation document, which is attached to the submission as the Annex A, implemented in order to facilitate competition and investment in the South African pipe gas industry. The measures were identified based on learnings from international experiences and is set in Table 1 on page 5 of the submission. And as indicated in the table, some of these measures are measures that NERSA can implement, and some of the measures would require policy or legislative changes, and with high-level analysis analysis of the costs and benefits of each of these measures for stakeholders to comment or provide inputs on. Chair, we would therefore like to request the Parliament regarding the inquiry on the NERSA website for stakeholder comment. Chairperson, item number 7. Chairperson, lastly, I would also just like to note that Mr. Mkhize has kindly provided his comments on the submission yesterday to us directly, for which we are very grateful. These are mainly for enhancement, and we will incorporate them accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Mkhize, for providing your comments. I think it will also save the committee some time. Thank you very much for that. Members, the document is before you, and this is still at the consultation level. It will be taken with regards to some measures that evidence or maybe some areas of enhancements. Yeah. Mr. Mkhize, please go ahead.
Yes, Chair. Sorry. I did provide my comments and thanks for the acknowledgement as such. There's just on this 6.8.5 that is on page 42. Engage with TNPA to develop. I think let that engagement continue or start, so to say, and we change there. And this thing can find us already running with the appeal. Otherwise, I'm happy with the incorporation of my other comments that I don't think I have to repeat them here. Thank you.
Okay. That is noted that the team should begin their engagement with the TNPA MOU signed with TNPA, and you may start working on these matters just to find the approach and find some areas of alignment before the other things that you have stated here. All right. Members, I would like now to take you to the recommendations, and they are on page 10 of the covering submission. Item number 15 state that the PGS is requested to approve inquiry on measures to improve competition in the inquiry on the measures to improve competition in the South African gas industry in order to facilitate investment. By show of hands, members, if you can approve that initiation as well as the consultation document. 7. Item number 7 is the preliminary assessment of ELISA Gas's multi-year rate. You've got a maximum of
PV. That is a result of a tender process by Consol. Latest perspective, it is its own 35% by BEE in the form of Women Trust. The application itself, it's a 10-year application starting from July 2 until June 2023. And the application uses, it's based on prerequisite for both the client and also the investor. Reduction perspective that is towards investors. The outcome of the assessment is a 5% variance applicant is put forward in the NERSA preliminary assessment. Really driven by data timing that's from a work perspective, input assumptions from a capital resulted in a few adjustments, and the text change was a resultant of the REB and the work changes that were factored in. We recommend, from a recommendations perspective, we recommend PGS to note this preliminary assessment and also to approve the publication.
Members, any questions, comment on the submission that was just presented? If there are any questions, the discussion document will then be published for stakeholders to comment. All right, if no questions from the members, may I then take members to the recommendations on page 16 of the covering submission. The PGS is requested to note the discussion document on ELISA gas tariff application, which is attached as Annexure A, and secondly, cited in Annexure A. By show of hands, member here. For some reason, I didn't support approval of the publication of the discussion document. All right, we now move on. These are all new entrants in the market, ELISA, and now we're going to another new entrant in this area which is 2022 until 31st December.
Gas transmission tariff application for the period starting from 1 January 2022 to 31st December 2031. Chair, the purpose of the report is for noting and approval of the publication of public gas discussion comment with confidential information withheld as per their request. Chair, Public Gas applied for a multi-year tariff application starting from 1 January to December 2021 based on a 10-year gas trading and funding agreement. And they also followed the DCF methodology to tariffs as per the tariff guidelines. Table 1 under section 4.6 provision tariffs being applied, a difference of 4% between Public Gas as well as NESA tariff calculation over the 10-year application period. And really the main drivers of this difference were working capital, as well as taxation, additional information from Public Gas on items such as OPEX, volumes, as well as decommissioning provision of these items before the final assessment. Chair, it is therefore requested that members note the preliminary assessment of Public Gas multi-year tariff application for the period 1 January 2022 to 31st December 2031, and as well as to approve the publication of the Public Gas discovery comment with confidential information withheld as reflected under Annexure A. Chair, the recommendations are under page 16. Thank you.
Ms. Mbongose, please go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm happy with the presentation. I just wanted to find out under clause 4.2, please pardon my background noise. Under clause 4. Detail on the shareholding, especially with respect to the 35% triple.
Other question before I allow the team to respond? Okay. Okay, thank you very much, members. If there are no further questions, Ms. Mpongo said that question will also be final decision is taken. The team will take that into consideration. So if you can assist me with the page. Paragraph 14, the PGS is requested to note the preliminary assessment of an application brought by Public Gas for a multi-tariff for the period starting from 1st January 2022 to 31st December. Required is that the PGS must approve the publication of the Public Gas's discussion document for public comment and with the confidential as highlighted in Annexure A. It will be the publication of Public Gases of the recommendations. Any other supporters? Thank you, Ms. Mpungose. And I also support. Thank you, Mr. Pugula. Thank you very much. Mr. Mkize?
Highlighted, and by looking at the job, to maybe unveil what the entity is. So if you can just highlight both names, both words, it will help. Thank you.
Okay. All right. For confidentiality purposes. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Mkize. Will be taken care of. Thank you very much. Members, we now move on to item number risk-free rate calculation for the period ended 31st December 2022. And please indicate this, please.
Thank you, Chairperson. This is the updates of the market risk premium and risk-free rate calculation for the period ended 31 December 2022. Chairperson, publishing the information enhances predictability. The calculated market risk premium for the period under review is 5.34%, and the risk-free rate is 10.13%, and the calculations are attached as Annexure A. Chair, we recommend.
Chair, you may be on mute. You? Sorry. Thank you very much, Nkosi Pile. Subcommittee, note the updated risk-free rate and market risk premium here to attached as members. Are you happy with these recommendations and the submission as it was Mkize? Thank you, Ms. Mpungose. Thank you, Advocate Stole. And thank you, Mr. Pugula. I also support. Thank you very much, members. We now item number 10. Item number 10 is the report on monitoring of SL CNG Pty Limited's compliance with the approved maximum price. And that is for the period July 2021, the members.
Thank you, Chairperson. I would like to present the SLCNG compliance report, period 2021-2022, discriminatory factor in terms of Section 22 of the Gas Act. This is a price that is below the approved maximum price in the period. And in terms of Section 22, they also complied. They're using only one feature, the volumes feature, as a discriminatory factor. Request the PGS to note the report. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sigenu. Members, any questions and comments on the submission? Mr. Mkhize.
Yes, I just would like to zoom into table 2. Thanks for the presentation, Ms. Sigenu, and Chair for the opportunity to comment. I would like just to know why, if one looks at the average volumes, etc., one might think it's going to be otherwise. And then I think it should.
Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Ms. Sigenu, assisted by Ms. Makoda.
Okay, Chairperson.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. In terms of table 2, Mr. Mkhize, SCLNG has got only 2 customers that consume gas consistently. All other are only in October, so hence their price is low. The attachments that indicate all our analysis. Thank you. Thank you.
But maybe you need to explain yourself there when you say that it purchased in October, hence the price is low. What does that mean? It pays a lower price. What exactly is happening? Just
okay. What I wanted to say, they did not purchase their price of gas consistently right through the year. They only purchased in 1 month, which was in October 2020. It's an inconsistent customer. It's consistent when you analyze with other customers. There's 2 consistent customers.
Okay. Here we're talking of averages. It must be clear whether they're talking of an arithmetic, a mathematical wise. So those things will help in terms of clarifying. But I do understand the issue from your side in terms of when the
question is significant in terms of Section 22 of the Gas Act, just to make sure that members are certain that there was discrimination. So it means you have to explain that difference. So if the volumes that were purchased by this customer in October are low or higher, then the price must then be explained on the basis of the quantity. And given the fact that customers are in different classes. If you can clarify, Ms. Makot.
Chairperson, I am partly covered, but I wanted to add the fact that these 2 customers, they are now acting as a pilot. In other words, they want to get the gas for themselves, other than the other customers who has transported gas to their premises. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I think that explanation by Ms. Makota is the one that translates in price. I think both aspects that she mentioned, they are applicable. Thank you very much, members. With that, are members then happy to then note that SLCNG did completion 21(1)P of the Gas Act in terms of the maximum that was charged? Mr. Mkhize, can I proceed, or you want to ask a follow-up question?
I'm voting. Thank you.
Oh, all right. Thank you. That's the first decision. And the second one, she complied with Section 22 of the Gas Act as it has not. And thank you, Advocate Sitole. Thank you very much, members. I step down on the National Petroleum Institute, which is the Mozambican regulator, in relation to on the Romco pipeline in Mozambique.
We can still proceed to discuss it as part of this meeting.
RSU. provide you, these are conditions of license that will impact on the operation. We issued an operation license to Romco, which is the pipeline company from transmitting gas from Mozambique to South Africa. So this has to do with regulatory compliance on the conditions of license imposed. Mr. Mkhize has raised a question as to whether this must be considered in an open meeting or as a chairperson to put it out and get a response for
that Mr. Mkhize has raised it. I think it looks like it can go to governance, but we did issue. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, shall we then discuss it under governance? Yes, it entails a number of issues, matters that can be discussed in the public domain, just so that there is transparency to the decision that section of the meeting. For that reason. Thank you, Ms. Mpongose. Thank you, Mr. Tole. It will be discussed for gas that was delivered in Secunda in the month of December 2022. Please take the matter as read.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This is the volume balance for December 2022. In the month of December, Chair, was minus 3.15%. And the gas delivered to the South African market was 12 million plus, with 1 million less than the anticipated 3. So, Chair, the variance is within the expected variance of 1%, Chair. And lastly, Chair, relegation zone. Thanks to RSU, Chair. Normally, it is the last to be considered. It is now in the middle of the pack, Chair. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Milato. Mr. Milato, I think it would be fair for members just to contextualize 2 changes now for all the years. There are 2 changes that happened here. One is the gas, which is the first time that we had gas imported from Mozambique by any other company except Sasol. Gwande gas is here, and that gas started flowing into South Africa in July of 2022. But that has not been reflected properly this morning on the importation by Sasol of additional volume with how it is, the changes that or the impact that it has on this, because you're also stating fall. And those things, but they don't reconcile. But maybe it can be something that can be in the next report, in the next meeting, so that the balancing works well here. Which was not Sasol's allocation in Mozambique, but for the Mozambicans. But it comes to South Africa, and also for Gwande, and also deal with the shortfall, so that there's proper reconciliation. Maybe in the next meeting, just for fairness to members and exactly the context of this report. Very much, members. Other than that, do you have any other questions on this report before we go to the recommendations? If no questions, the Pipe Gas Subcommittee is requested to note the monthly volume balance for the month of December is depicted on the table below, table 2 below, and then also to note the amount, which at this point the team says it's they are not very much concerned about it, but they will monitor it going forward. Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. And
Chairperson, before
yes,
I
Mr.
tried to, maybe my hand was low. I look at table figure 3, the yearly volume balance variance in gigajoules. I think a more realistic picture, but I'm happy to support the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mkhize. Annexure 3 on page 17. Does it not deal with that, Mr. Mkhize, in a percentage form?
Yes, I understand, but I'm saying that in the submission, if they can just superimpose that on figure 3, it will help. Thank you.
All right. Okay, that is noted. Members, I've already read out the recommendations. I would like to, with what Mr. Mkhize has indicated, and also the point I made earlier, are members happy then to note the report? Thank you, Ms. Mpongose, Mkhize, and TA1 gas transportation agreement for the main pipeline from Mozambique to South Africa, looking at the tariff was calculated and charged by ROMCO for the period starting from October 2022 until 30 December 2022. Take the matter as read and highlight the key.
Where we monitor ROMCO's GTA1 tariff in line with the period currently that it's been the agreement, and the following to increase by 2.3%. So we request PGS to note the ROMCO tariff for the period. Thank you, Chair.
Which is the main pipeline, 865 kilometer long pipeline. This tariff is for that, not for the other additional investments. Any questions? If none, members, take you to the recommendations period October 2022 to December 2020. So the table is there showing all of the tariffs from the time the tariffs were the time that ROMCO started charging these tariffs in 2000.